What's up guys, Axis here and I'm back with a new tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you a pretty interesting way of doing apartment blocks inside Cinema 4D, and then I'm going to be bringing the displacement that I create into Octane render. So first off, before we get into this tutorial, the newly released Landscape Essentials is 45% off until January 15th, so check it out in the top right of this video. I've got a full page detailing everything. It's 50 landscapes, 8K. Each landscape has a normal map, texture map, and a height map. So you've got pretty much endless possibilities, and there's a really large variety of landscapes in there. So let's get into this. That's the plug done. Firstly, we're gonna go to textures.com, and you can grab a building. So I normally go with a high-rise section. There's a lot of interesting buildings here. We've got like Asian tower blocks. That's probably my favorite section just because of how random it all is. But as you can see, this would be a lot of work. There's quite a lot of rooms that you're gonna have to recreate. This is probably on the lesser side. So I'm gonna be using something from like office or residential. These two are pretty easy normally. They're still kind of tedious because you have to use a pretty low res version unless you're willing to pay. But obviously if you want to render out at a certain resolution, then you might want to buy credits, which aren't that expensive. Anyway, if you get a seamless texture, you'll be able to tile it, so that will also make you be able to render at higher res because you can just tile it and make it more dense. But yeah, that's just that. So we can just get the texture that I'm using, which is this one. I scrolled quite far down for this, I think. Got it last night, I don't really remember. But you got to go into the front view, drag this in, and there we go. Our texture's in. If we do Shift V, we can go into view, or no, back, and you can see that the aspect ratio is a pretty weird one. So you're gonna have to keep that in mind. And I'm actually going to reset this to the original resolution so we don't have any decimals, so it's a lot easier to work with. Come on. Right, I'm going to have to go into properties. So properties, details, 1024. So since it will lock to the aspect ratio currently, because we've got keep the aspect ratio checked, we can just type in 1024, and there we have our full res image. Now if I set up the aspect ratio in the render settings as well, it's best to do that now than later because it is actually crucial for rendering it out, because otherwise it's not going to go over the texture properly. So we get 1024 and 868 lock aspect ratio, and then you can also, probably when we render this we're going to times this by a few because we're actually rendering a height map, so we need as much detail as possible. And then I'm going to grab a plane. So we go up here, grab a plane, put that onto Z, either Z plus or Z minus, doesn't really matter. So 1024 by 868, and we should have the correct res. Right, so now if I just remove all the segments here, because we're actually going to be creating segments where the windows are, I think I'm only going to do one window and then I'm going to skip to the end, just because otherwise this tutorial is going to be really long. So I've made it editable by clicking C, and if we click K followed by L, we can get our loop cut, go into our polygon selection mode, and there we go, we can start selecting polygons. So I'm just going to select this window here, and I'm going to select the top and the bottom. And I'm also going to select the windowsill, so the top of the windowsill is around here. And I think I'm going to extrude the window first, and then I'm going to do further cuts inside the window. So if we just go into our perspective view and then drag this out, just do D for extrusion, by the way. So obviously you can't really tell the depth, but you can just go by eye. So I'm going to go with that. And I'm actually gonna wait till extrude the window, but it's good to keep a copy of, or remember what the extrusion is that you did. So I did -18. I've just done it again, so I'm just gonna do new transform. Maybe put it in a notepad so window extrusion is -18. So there we go. Now all your extrusions will be equal, which is probably good. So now I'm going to go and do KL again, and I'm gonna do some windows now. So select the edges of the windows, and there we go. And now I'm gonna really slightly extrude the windows. I don't even think this is necessary, but only like a really slight amount should do, because if you do look at your windows, there is like a tiny extrusion before the like from the frame to the window. Actually mine's quite big, so I'll do something like that. And if you do cut, so you right click and go cut, I don't actually remember where it is because I used a shortcut, but let's see if I can find it. If I can't, I'll just tell you the shortcut. Oh, it's split, my bad. And then delete, so make sure you're hovering over here and click delete, and that will delete it from the original. So if we hide this real quick, you can see we've got our window. Now this is important because we're actually going to be creating a mat for where the windows are going to be. So we can add a specular or a glossy material and kind of fake the reflection that you would get on a window. Obviously the rest of the building here is a brick, so it's not going to be reflective. So now we've done that, we can go on to the next couple windows. Also there's this little extrusion here that you can do, but I'm not going to bother, just to save some time. So I'm actually going to extrude slightly further down here, because as you can see there's a little bump where the where this like lip falls down here. So also that falls down just in the middle, so that's where I'm going to do. If I select all these and then click UZ, it will melt it. So if you right click and go to melt, which is here, or click U followed by Z, you should be able to melt it, and that will make those 3 polygons into 1, which is a bit easier to see. So now I'll just extrude this down slightly. Let's just go -3. Oh, I forgot to put down what my window extrusion was, but it wasn't very big. Let's just call this lip extrusion. Do -3. I actually want to check if the bottom is extruded. I can't really tell. It's pretty difficult to tell on these low-res buildings when you're zoomed right in. Okay, so another problem is with with melting that. Now we don't get to use loop selection, so you might want to go into plane cut, which is KJ, and then go to world mode, and then go. Actually, yeah, that's fine. So go XY in this case for front view, and now we're going to select the windows. So that's the first window selected. Second window. Second window kind of looks like it comes out a bit, but I'm not going to bother with that. I'm going to confuse myself, right? So that's the first window. So select that. Select the bottom window too, because we're just going to extrude these at the same time, save some time. We're going to do UZ again to make it all one polygon, and I'm going to extrude this in. Again, I don't know what I extruded before, so I'm just going to have to go by eye. Or actually, maybe I could go into the top view. And it's roughly here. Oh, that's fiddly. 0.02. Actually, no, that wouldn't be the same because we've actually extruded further, so something like that, I guess. And I'll write this one down, so I'll do like -2.2. Okay. Okay, and I'm actually going to go and just skip to the next part where I've done all these windows. But another interesting thing to point out is some of these windows have bars over them, and some of them have AC units. I'm going to do the AC units, and I'm going to show you to do these bars, but the bars are really self-explanatory. I actually thought that I would use a sweep for this originally, but it kind of just looks like a cube, I mean like a rectangle that's just been stretched. So I might just do that because it'd be way easier as well. Because I was thinking I was going to do a rectangle that I would like mess around with and get it to curve, but this should be fine. So get a cube and then place it here. Just scale it down to the correct height, and then we're going to just drag out the X. So yeah, that looks fine. We can even add a little bevel to this to like 0.05 or something. And then obviously if you had this window extruded, you could drag it in because it clearly is in that indent there. So yeah, now I'm going to do the AC unit, and then I'll be skipping to after done all these windows. So drag this down. It just looks like a cube again, that we then make a cuboid, and I'm just going to extrude the inner bit a little bit. So if we do, let's see how, if I click NB, you'll be able to see your lines, by the way. So if you go Grand shading, or however you say it, lines, you'll be able to get those. Also decrease the Z. It doesn't look like it sticks out from the window too much, say maybe just slightly above it. There we go. Just gonna have it slightly intersecting because I don't want it to anything to pass those windows there, because that's basically 0 in our height map. So now we've done that, make that editable, click the center, do I for inner extrude, drag in. Looks like we're gonna have to do a bit more manual adjusting. Just by clicking T with the scale tool, and now extrude this very slightly by clicking D and dragging. And now I'm just gonna basically add a bunch of cloned cubes. So if I go into my coordinates, do Control A and Control C, make sure you're hovering over here so it copies it. Grab a cube, do the paste into the coordinates, right, and then scale this really far down on the Y. Scale up on the X, and scale it down on the Z. So we just have these little slits here. Also might be a good idea to try and match them, but they're really low res, so since they're so far away, so we're just gonna have to go by eye. And then if I go to cloner, do grid array, do 1 and then 1, so we just have the Y clones. Make this really small, and then just do per step, which will allow us to just increase this until we get to the end of here. Just try and center this a bit better. That might be a bit too thick, but whatever. You guys get the idea, I hope. And also you could bevel this AC as well if you wanted. So we can either do that by selecting the edges. Well, actually, I'll probably just do that. I was going to say you can use a bevel deformer, but I'm already here. So then we can do right click and bevel, or MS. And I'm going to do 2 on the subdivisions. We don't need it to be too high. And there we go. Really slight bevel. You can also do that on the cube in here. So just click on fillet, 0.05 or something. Really slight. And that's our first window done. So I'm also, I think, yeah, I might extrude, I might do some bevels on these windows too, so just keep that in mind. When I skip to the next part, I will be just showing you how to export it, and then we're going to be going into Octane. So yeah, see you in a bit. And I'm back. Now, that took a bit longer than I expected. So this is all done now. I'm going to just group everything up. So I'm just going to call these lines because I don't know what they are. So let's call this AC2. No Assassin's Creed. And then we need to group this with the other AC. Call this AC1. Another line. Yeah, I think that's them. And the plane, we'll just call these bricks. and those are the windows. So I think what's best to do is to actually extrude all the windows in first. Probably should have said that at the start, but otherwise you're gonna have a bunch of cuts everywhere. And also I was using a lot of restrict to selection. So basically what that means is the cut will be basically restricted to a polygon, which will make sure there's not lines everywhere. So like if I select this, it will only cut into that selection. So another thing that I forgot to mention, if you happen to be watching this and pulling your hair out. So I'm not going to bother adding extrudes. I can try really quickly, and if there's a lot of pixely mess going on, then I'm not going to bother. But if you just hold shift, grab bevel, and then select use angle, we should get what we're wanting. That's alright. And then maybe do like 0.2 or something. This will just kind of blur the edges and make the displacement a little nicer looking. So now I'm going to make sure that everything is like level, I guess. And then I'm going to drag this, put it in a null, and then we're going to start creating our displacement. So I'm just going to drag this all the way to what I think is 0 here on the top view. And now I've done that, I'm going to go and make a gradient. So we're just going to call this height or something. And then check on luminance and nothing else, go to gradient, and then go scroll this down and change this to linear. Now if we drag this onto our null, you can see the projection is a bit messed up, but luckily if we just turn on flat, this should all be fixed. So it's still looking a bit weird. So what I'm going to do is I click this texture selection thingamajiggy, and hopefully I should be able to rotate this. Don't know why it's not coming up. Maybe if I duplicate this and then do select children, connect and delete, we can get a lot of textures. I'm just going to delete all these and then drag the texture back on. There we go. We can see the this little thing now. So if I rotate this 90, you can see the gradient is coming from the correct angle, I think. Yeah, there we go. So if I drag this all the way to 0, then technically the lowest point on this map should be black, and if you keep dragging it, you get to white eventually. So that's also a good indicator. And then we can find out the height of this by going and clicking on polygons, selecting all, and then copying the Z size and going into this mode. And I wonder if this will just work. I think that worked. No, it didn't work. Right, so if you just keep just do it by eye, then just keep dragging until we get to black again. So if I just render this really quickly, as you can see, it's looking pretty weird. Also, there we go, that's it. There was a bit of clip in there. So now for my camera, what we're going to do is we're going to grab a camera now, obviously. And actually, I'm going to go into the front view and click S while selecting this building. So just call this building. Drag this out a bit so you guys can see what's going on. And grab a camera. Go into the perspective view. Go into the front view now, and the front view should now be front. I mean, the perspective view should now be front, my bad. And the way I actually get this to fill up the entire screen, I was looking everywhere and people were using like espresso and stuff like that, but basically I found that on the front view, if you add, I think it's 5.5% or something to this value, so something, I think that's it. I'll just copy this and all of them, it'll fill the screen. So that's why you need to have this on 1 initially as well. So make sure you aren't scaling things up if you're somehow watching this before you do it. If I render this out, there we go, that's looking good. I'm gonna go out the view for a second. Oh, that was spooky. Okay, I'm just making sure that AC unit wasn't looking weird. Okay, and now what we can do is we can like times this value by 8 or something, ridiculous. Save this. It's probably best to save it as a PSD. I mean, like a TIFF PSD layers. It doesn't really matter though. I'm just going to be saving it in here. So go height. And then we'll start rendering. Shouldn't take too long. Alright, so now that render's done, basically I'm just going to do the mats now. So the way we do this is we're going to just hide this original, because this is why I created a copy, so I could actually go back and get the windows. So if I just hide this, for example, and then select all these, now these will be the visible things, which is how we're going to basically mix the specular material with the original. So if I now create a exclusively luminant white matte, just no other channel, just luminance, drag this onto our windows, or a quicker way of doing it would be assignment, selecting all these, drag them in, render it real quick, and if we just render this out as loom, hopefully that should be a lot quicker. You shouldn't have to skip. Okay, and now we can go into our new composition and make a plane. So if we go up here to the primitives and add a plane, and now we can create a Octane shader or Arnold, depending. And I'm going to change the res of this, or the aspect ratio, to 1024 by 868. I think that's it. And now if I go into another view, we can see our building texture. So we can call this bricks. And then I can go to displacement, add displacement, go inside your displacement and add a image texture. Move this up to 8K and drag in our height map. No. And turn on float as well, because it's just black and white, so we don't need to speed any. We don't need to slow it down by adding any extra detail. Now if I export this now, we should get something. Hopefully. And no, we're not yet. Oh, it's because the amount's on 0. Alright, there we go. And something weird's happening here, it's upside down. But luckily, since I got a seamless texture, we can actually put this on cubic. Go to the front. And there we have all our little apartment buildings. It doesn't seem to be... Okay, there's a bit of a seam there actually. I think that's just because I didn't scale it up properly, but I mean, you can obviously go back and render it just slightly higher, maybe like 0.56 or something. That should fix it on the coordinates. But now I can add my image texture. This is the great thing about it being a displacement, is that we can use projections, we can do whatever we want, tile it however we want. We can put it onto a UV'd head if you wanted to. Don't know why you would, but it might look cool, who knows. Put it in a tunnel, do whatever you want with it. Now that projection is perfect now. You can see the AC, where the extrusions are, there isn't actually a texture, which I mean, kind of comes with your little cheat method of getting a building here. But we have got an extrusion. There are some little imperfections as well when you see it at different angles. So for example, a good use case for this would be like the pause title sequence. I think it was 2016 or 2015, which is probably the best way to show this off, is probably to throw a sun in here, which I'll do in a second. But I'll stop rambling and we can actually create a mix material. So go mix material, and then we're going to create our window material. It's going to be a fake window material, sadly. So if we go Octane material and glossy index down to 1, I'm not going to add any roughness quite yet. Drag this into our mixed material, both our textures, that is, and our image texture should go in here along with our luminance. and you have to add the displacement again. So if we go to displacement, just copy our displacement, go back into our mix, go to use displacement and paste this in here. And now if we go and add this to our plane, hit the projection on cubic, something's not quite right. Something isn't quite right. Oh, I know. Oh, right, okay. There we go. Crisis avoided, right. So hide this, duplicate it again. Basically what I forgot to do was add the 0.055 to our value. Okay, there we go. Now I can render this out. Right, so there we go. Sorry about that. I'm gonna go back into my projects, and if I reload this, this should be correct now. It seems like one of the windows is missing, but whatever. Let's see if it actually is. Oh no, it's not, it's fine. Or is it every other window that's missing? I don't know. Anyway, you guys should get the idea pretty much. And now I can add a daylight. Yeah, there's something wrong with this. Wonder what it is. Or resend it. I don't know. That is weird. I'm just gonna move the coordinates around until I get the desired effect. So there we go. Now we've got a bit of long shadows going on. Just rotating this manually now. It's a pretty cool effect. And really that window there is kind of annoying me, but there's other ones. It's just not as obvious. I don't know why. Maybe if I turn it to like an obvious like red or something, I'll be able to tell. Yeah, those are all working actually. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so there we go. My demon house is complete. Thanks for watching. Sorry for all those issues. And remember to check out Landscape Essentials. So that's got no issues. That's running perfectly. Check it out in the top right. Got a bunch of renders up there. 45% off until 15th of January. And I'll see you guys in the next video.